let's move forward. We have a lot to cover. In the previous videos, we looked at points, lines, curves, circles. And then now you see there's ellipse, arcs, rectangles, polygons. And then we have some tools which are basically modifying curves. So what I want to try is to actually go through these a few line creating tools or curve creating tools, ellipse, arc, rectangle, and polygon, fairly quickly, because it's actually just repeating what we already learned with some specialties. Let's you see the triangle. I'm gonna click here to open it. You see we have different ways to draw the ellipse, and these are very similar ways to draw all the other stuff we did before, and just with the difference that it draws an ellipse which needs some other input, but it's gonna be very similar. So ellipse from center, I can actually click here again, and you see that you're gonna have this subcommands, which are actually just the ones here. So this time we will just click through these and just draw based on the guidance Rhino gives us. Okay, yes, ellipse from center. So it asks for a center point, of course. So I use my origin here, and then now it asks me for the end of the axis, one of the axes, and then the end of the second axis. And you can see that if you use the same length of the axis, it becomes a circle. I use half. So here you have it. That's an ellipse. Okay, let's draw this one. It's basically the same as we did with the circle, drawing a circle with the diameter rather than the radius, with the difference that you have to have two diameters, basically, like one diameter and then the second one. Next one is ellipse from foci. That means mark foci. Yeah, maybe let's do that. Draw it anywhere, and then you see what it does. It's always good to play a bit around how that works. And then you would probably be able to snap wherever you need to snap with your with the point on the ellipse. This is quite good, and it marks the focal point. Okay. Next one, ellipse around curve. Ellipse around curve. For that, it might be interesting to actually see that in perspective. As you can remember, I did this like weird shape in the circle section where we discussed circles. So I hope you can remember. Basically, you draw an ellipse perpendicular to a curve, like this. Yeah. And interestingly, it's a bit twisted. Something to figure out how it's determined the direction. Oh yeah, because I'm snapping with my ortho, I can snap to the 45 degree angle, and that could be interesting actually to explore a bit further. Yeah, and then I could loft these if I want. Let's go into another view. Give it a bit of a different material so it looks a bit more interesting. Still okay. Yeah. Of course, that already goes into like creating surfaces, but it's always good to see how quickly you can do things within Rhino. Ellipse by corners, that could be interesting if you need to place them. If you need to place the ellipse in a specific rectangle. For that, let's quickly draw a rectangle. That's also very simple. Take like just here, first corner of the rectangle. Again, here. And then anyway, it doesn't really matter. But now, actually, now I can snap to these points and draw the ellipse. That's quite handy. And ellipse, deformable ellipse. We talked about this before. Maybe let's check the difference. Draw this ellipse. If I click here, you can see it has these control points, and if I move them, you get these kinks here. And if I use the deformable ellipse, then you get these static control points. Yeah, makes a big difference. And one more thing, which is actually not in here, that's interesting. It's the vertical one. We talked about this before. Actually, there's no button to click for vertical ellipse, but you can just type V, enter, and then it's gonna be a vertical ellipse, like the circle. Okay, let's kill that. Arcs. Again, this is very similar. Why? So let's take the first one. So again, I use my origin as a center, and then I need to draw the start point and then the arc or the end point. And you can enter the length, which is very handy as well. If you have a specific length in mind, then you can do that. Let's do 100. And I drew it in the opposite direction. If you want to draw it in the other direction, then you need to put -100. Right, -100. And you can actually see here where you are. You can see the length here. Okay, that's one way. Then here you have two options. You see the left and right mouse button. It's either start, end point, and point on the arc, or start, point on the arc, and then the end point. Okay, let's try both. One. Now it asks me for the end point and then for the point on the arc. That I use that also sometimes. And then the other one is start point, point on the arc, and then the end point. Next one is that I use fairly often. Start point, end point, and the direction of the arc. That's very useful. Or start point, direction, and at start point and then the end point. Okay, let's the first one. So start point, end point, and then the direction of the arc. And the other one is start point, direction, and then the arc, then the end point. The idea would be to later on when we finish with this part, we definitely have a look onto the surfaces fairly quickly. But when we threw all these here, then I will start with like small projects where you can see all these things in action. And the last one here in the list is in this upper list is the start, end, and then radius. Start point, end point, and then you define the radius. Okay, either by snapping to something or by just putting the radius 200. And then it tells you, it's too small. It need to be because of the distance between the start point and end point. The radius need to be at least 765.82. So let's say 800. Okay. And by the way, it's not a deformable. It's deformable, but it creates these kinks. Yeah, you can see that actually you could make it deformable first and then decide which one you choose. Tangent curves. Let's have two curves here. Let's try this one. Tangent to curves. First tangent curve. Let's have this one here, and then you could choose a third one. Just type enter here because I only have two, and then it creates your arc in the direction you want. Arc through points. We saw that in the previous things. We saw lines through points and curves through points. Let's try that. I never did that before. Arc through points. Let's select points to build a curve. I already select points for curve because it actually creates a lot of small arcs separate. Interesting. And convert curve to arcs. If you want to be very exact and you want to need all the radii for each arc, then that's also definitely needed. Just to show you how that would look like. So now I have a curve which is based on these control points, and now I can put here and then it creates arcs. So rectangles. Rectangles, again, we saw that already before. A rectangle based on a diagonal vector, basically. So it's like drawing a line from here to here, or from the center. That's also possible. So you draw it from the center. I very often use the 3-point because I draw it by length and height. And you have also the vertical. You can draw it vertical. Actually, I think here's a specific button for it. Before we didn't have a button. Yeah, I can put here in the length 100. Let's go a bit bigger. 1000, and then you add the height or the width, depending on how you see it. Next one. So very quick, or like this. Of course, there could be a way to actually, draw something like this. We were getting to walls and stuff like that later, but yeah, you could outline actually your object like this if you want, if it's simple as this, and then actually create surfaces with surface from planar curves. Let's do this. Yeah, now I could join them, creating one surface, one poly surface, and then close it with a command called cap. Now I have this object, and render viewport would look like this. Let's put it on a different layer with a different color, so we can create a nice preview image. Materials is also a topic we need to look at some point. I'm gonna scale that quickly. Next one, rounded rectangle. You can create really interesting profiles. It works the same way. You have all the options as you had before. You can choose diagonal, vertical, from the center, around the curve. We saw that before. It's not in here, that's interesting, but you can actually draw also the rectangle around the curve. So just be aware that there are always more options up here than in your tools. And then it goes into the rounded corner tool. So I can choose one of these. I choose 3-point, and in that case I just type P, start edge, second edge, and then I choose the corner arc, the corner as an arc, corner as conic, and you have some options here on how to. That's really interesting actually. So either like this, or again, if I right click, I just repeat the command, and then the rounded corner version. Conic or rounded corners. And you can see that this is defined by control points, and here you have arcs in here. Let's make that a bit more extreme. I'll actually see, that's something I didn't know. Never tried that before. The conic version. Then extrude. And let's create a bit more different materials here. Okay, next thing, let's crack on with the polygon. It should be fairly quick. That's an interesting tool as well. Again, same workflow applies again. Oh yeah, by the way, if you don't want to see the ISO curves of the surface, you can turn it off here. Select everything, property, ISO curve density, show surface ISO curves, and then unclick. Then it looks more clean in your viewport. This is the like cookie cutter kind of shapes. Doesn't really matter. Oh, yeah. So I was creating triangles before. So yes. So if you click here, it asks you how many sides do you want to have for a polygon. You can choose the number of sides. In that case, it's 3. Or just repeat that with right click. Click N and say 8, and then I have 8 sides. And then you have different options on how you draw these. So circumscribed, meaning the radius of the polygon into the corner of the polygon. Again, so it's my second point to choose from is in the corner of that side. And in here I can actually choose the edge as a control edge. So basically I draw the radius to the side of the polygon. Polygon by edge. It's basically draw the polygon as before. It has still the same amount of sides. Of course I could. That's very interesting actually. You can, for example, if I would like to draw the same shape but flipped, then you just type F here and it flips it in a different direction. And what is also good, even though I started already with the drawing process, I can actually change the number of sides. I can say 5 and draw this like this. That doesn't work, but here I could of course draw a rectangle. That could work. Number of sides 4. Now if I do this, it should actually fit in here. And then of course you can extrude them if you want again. I think we're almost there. Well, the only difference is that this is automatically draws you a square whenever you need a square, and then you can always change the amount of corners or sides. And then you have the same here, which is drawing a square with the radius on the edge rather than the corner. And then you have the same with this one, drawing a rectangle, a square with the edge, by drawing the edge. It's actually really good. I should use it more often. And then you can flip it again. Right? So and then we could fillet everything. Fillet, edge, and the radius we're gonna choose 10 maybe. Select all edges. I'm gonna select all edges. That's a bit small, the radius. Okay, let's do it again. Next. 100, maybe 100. That's a bit too much. Again, oh, here you need to put in the radius first. Yeah, create this weird object. Okay, that's, oh no, we still have one, the star. Center of the star, then the number, how many sides. But if we then choose the corner, then it's actually splits the edge in half and creates another point in between, which then we can create a star out of it. And you can still change the number of sides. That's quite cool, because you can still do this, right? Let's do it again. Number of sides. Number of sides 5, and then this, or like this. Could do the same as before. Extrude, and then fillet the edges. Maybe we go a bit higher with the radius, 100. And okay, now let's try something else here. That's the wrong command. The right command is this one. Rail. Select rail. And then... sorry. Rail. And then the... now we're correct. Yeah. Man, I'm just playing around, but yeah, cool. I hope you like it, and let's continue in the next session with this with the curve tools, and then we are ready for our first surfaces, which you already saw, I know, but then for real, go through all these different types of surfaces and how to modify them, how to explode them, join them, and group them together, and more. That's it. See you next time.